It is time now to use the full version of Java. We are going to be using a programming environment called Eclipse for our projects. There's another one called NetBeans, which is very similar. Both are free. Eclipse is kind of like a Microsoft Word for code. It tries to double check corrections, kind of like an auto check for spelling. It will show you mismatched braces, things like that. So to begin with, I'm going to start up Eclipse. So the first thing it's going to ask is select a workspace. The workspace is the folder where it saves all of your projects. So make sure that when you're setting up this workspace, it's somewhere that you can get to. So I'm putting mine on my desktop so that it's fairly easy to get to. This is where all your code will be stored, any new projects, things like that. So it goes ahead and launches. If you have the Android version, you're going to want to close that window, and then it should look something like this. So we have projects over here. You may not have any at the moment. Your code will go here. There's some other information around. The bottom down here has the console. So to create a new Java project, I need to go under File, New, Java Project. If you don't see that, go check underneath Other. It may be inside there. Project name. So this is the folder where all the stuff is going to go. So the first project that I'm going to be working on is called Guessing Game. So I'm going to give it a name, something like that. Most of these defaults are just fine, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit Finish. And now I've got a guessing game project here. So here's the Java runtime library. Here's an empty source folder. So Java code is written in a file called a class. So the very first class I'm going to create goes in here. You can go up under File and New Class. Alternately, you can right-click on Source and go to New Class. All right, so here we go. The name of the class goes here. So I'm going to do Guessing Game. You could just do Guess, whatever you feel like here. Make sure that you don't use any spaces, and upper and lowercase is going to matter. Generally speaking, most Java classes, you have a capital letter at the beginning, and each new word has a capital letter as well. That's not actually required. It's just a standardized practice so that you can tell that this is a class. And then hit Finish. All right, so here's my new Java class. And notice it's over here in the Explorer as well. What else in here? Well, the first thing is this defines the whole class, public, class, and the name of it. Notice the name up here, guessinggame.java. That must match exactly with the name of your class. So the guessing game class must be in a file named guessinggame.java, spelled exactly the same way. If you try and rename this file, it'll throw an error because the name of the class won't match the name of your Java file. The class goes from this brace down to this brace. All right, so there's a few other things that are put in here. Public static void main is the main method that's used in Java applications. So your code always starts running right there. It's a little more complicated than the JRU version. There's a few more words to it. So public means everyone can use it. Static means that there's only one of them in the class. Void means it doesn't return anything. You can also put in command line arguments through here. For now, we don't need to worry about most of those things. Just know that main is where you're going to start. And the main class method goes from that curly brace to this curly brace. It's also added in a couple of comments. So it's got the 2/ comment. 2 slashes means that everything after that is ignored. So I could put notes here. I could comment out code that way, things like that. There's also something called a multi-line comment, which is a slash and a star. And it ignores everything until it reaches a star and a slash across multiple lines. So for example, I could delete the / here and move it down here. And that would comment out all of this. Yet again, it's another way to leave yourself notes. So for my first program, I don't really need these. I'm just going to erase these comments. For the first project, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to create a new one of these guessing game classes. So that's going to require 2 steps. The first step is I should actually create something called a constructor. Public, and then the name of your class. And for now, just an open and close parenthesis on the end. And then I'm going to put braces around my code. So this is called a constructor. When you create a new guessing game project, it runs this code here, wherever it is. So in my main method, I want to say new guessing game with open and close parentheses and the semicolon at the end. Semicolon goes at the end of any of your lines, much like in JRU. So what this is going to do is, it's going to create a new guessing game as soon as the program starts, because it starts in main, and we're going to jump up here to the constructor and run any code here. Just to make sure this works, let's try printing something out to the console down here to make sure it works. Printing out is actually kind of a long piece of code. It's system.out.println, or print line I'll often say. So it's a capital S on system, period, out, period, println, and then open and close parentheses on the end and a semicolon. Print line means that it puts, the ln part means it puts a return on it. So whatever you put in the parentheses in here gets printed out to the bottom. So to begin with, let's just give ourselves a message. We need to put this in double quotes. So within the double quotes, this works. We have a new program. It'll start in the main method when I run it. It'll create a new guessing game. That'll jump up here, and it'll execute this line of code. To begin with, I can right-click on this, do run as, and run as a Java application. That's one way to do it. You can also run it by using this little green run button up here. If you have multiple projects, this run button only runs the most recent one, so you may have to choose which project you're going to run. At the moment, this is the only one open, so I should be able to run it here. And I want to run this as a Java application. It's asked if I want to save it. There we go, all done. So this is the console. When you say system out print line, it prints down here in the console. There we go, our very first working full Java project. So the next step is that I would like to use something called a variable. So from JRU, it would have been really nice if we could have actually counted how many times we had hopped, or keep track of whether we're going left or right. Maybe we want to count how many flowers we've got. The nice thing about the full version of Java is you can actually store those numbers and use them later on. There's actually more than just numbers you can store, though. There's a variety of different things. So I'm going to go over a few of the different types. The first type is called a Boolean. So a Boolean is a true or a false value, and that's it. You can put in true, you can put in false, nothing else. Let's make a variable called test. I'm going to say true. So what this line does is it says this kind of variable is going to be a new Boolean variable. So it's going to be true or false only. I gave it a name, and you can name this whatever you like. Basically, names just have to be letters and numbers, and it's got to start with a letter. You can use uppercase, you can use lowercase, you can use underscores. Other than that, though, you want to avoid any of the special symbols. And then, after that, I say equals true. Now, the equal sign means that whatever's on the right side of the equal sign gets assigned into the variable. So after this line of code is done, test gets created, and it gets the value true put inside of it. And I can check that out by printing it out. So if I do system.out.println, and in the parentheses I say test, notice I didn't use quotes. If I run this, and I think I'm going to always save it, it says true. Now notice the difference here between test without quotes and putting it in quotes. So if I put quotes around it, it says test. If you want to print out the thing inside the variable, you can't use the quotes. True. That's one kind of variable I can use. Another kind that I can use is an integer. It's shortened to int. So an integer is a whole number, so no decimal value. 7, 25, 562, whatever that number is. So I'm going to create an int named number and give it a value. So 14. So it takes the value 14, assigns it into number. There we go. Let's print it out, see how it works. So it still has this line here, so it prints out test, and then it prints out number, true, 14. Good. What if I do want a decimal point? What if I need something that actually has more precision? We're going to be using something called a double. So I'm going to make a double named decimal, 0.314. All right. So decimal now has this number here. You can also do something that is more than 1, so I could say 10.314 here. Now, Eclipse has some shortcuts in it, which are kind of nice. So rather than typing this whole system out print line, if you type sys out for shortcut for system out, and then do control and space, it automatically fills that in for you. Super cool. So decimal. So if I run this, true 14.314. Another thing that you can use is a single character. This is called a char. So a char is just one single symbol. So if I say letter, and then what you do for a char is you use single quotes, not double quotes, single. So I can make this the letter R, for example. So I'm going to print out letter. So true 14.314R. You can have a single letter contained in this. By the way, you could also have a space. That's a valid character. You could have a letter 3, which is different from a number, and Java won't let you use one for the other, by the way. You could use a special symbol. So there's a variety of different characters you can use. Now, you may have noticed that earlier I used something in double quotes. This is a special variable called a string. It's basically a string of characters, a series of characters. If I want sentence, maybe. String sentence equals, and then in double quotes, this is a sentence. And then I can print that out. So I run this, prints it out, true 14.314, number sign, this is a sentence. Notice I use double quotes here. So when you need a series of characters, it's got to be a string, and it's in double quotes. A single letter is a single quotes. The other thing is, notice this is a capital S on string. So strings are actually special. All of these things, Boolean, int, double char, these are all something called a primitive type. They're very basic data. String is something called an object type. Objects are generally more powerful, but they also require special treatment when you're doing things. String is a special case of that.